that left me with a sense of needing to figure out how to survive any moment and try to manage the people around me to the extent that I could be safe. So it often meant setting myself aside. And it usually meant trying to get in front of every possible train that might be coming down the track, listening for the tiniest of cues in the environment to see if I was safe in that moment or not.
Hey, Nicole, what do you get when a former corporate CEO and a do-gooding executive walk into a recording studio?
Well, Aaron, nothing, because the two of us are usually on my couch or Zoom, because wine.
You get a podcast created for Gen X women who are bought into the corporate world, but fed up with the BS.
I know. It's how to thrive the 9 to 5 or 6 or 7.
It's career therapy. It's comedy. It's definitely full-on authenticity. Basically, we give you tangible strategies to rise in your career without compromising everything else.
Because work doesn't have to suck.
Hey, welcome back to the Because Work Doesn't Have to Suck podcast. This is Erin here, and we are a podcast that, look, we welcome all, but we specifically focus and design this for Gen X female leaders who work in corporate America and should be at the top of their career, but just don't feel like you are. So if that's you, welcome. And if it's not you, come on along because we've got a great episode. Again, this is Erin. I am the co-host with Nicole, and I am a former corporate CEO turned keynote speaker, author, business coach, and I guess an authenticity addict. But anyway, today we're actually talking to an amazing guest. We get to talk to Dr. B. It's Dr. Bridget Cooper, who is an executive coach, keynote speaker, and 7-time author. 7. Unbelievable. Just when you think you had big goals, right? Including, we talk about her latest book, Unflappable. And today we're specifically talking about how do you stay calm in chaos and confrontation? Basically be unflappable. And we'll talk about what that means. So here are some of the things you'll hear. The first one's pretty heavy. The first one is a simple mindset shift that she used to help her go from wanting to take her life to finding her life's purpose. It's truly unbelievable. Second, we'll hear what happens in your brain. Like, what is the science behind your brain and when you're faced with conflict or confrontation? We'll also talk about the bubble concept, which I absolutely love. And Dr. B shares a hilarious story that shows kind of how this concept was brought to life and then how you can use it to stay calm in confrontation. We'll also talk about the power of adding and or at the end of negative sentences and how that can be just this new vernacular that you and your team use. And also how you can literally shake it off. Like literally. It's awesome. And just overall, you're just going to love her passion and her humor and just the simple approaches she takes to help you next time you feel like you're in confrontation, which is probably going to be about 3 minutes after you finish this podcast, and could be with your boss, your client, your partner, definitely could be with your children. So I think these little simple strategies you're going to love, and I hope you enjoy our conversation with Dr. B. So I guess that's the first question. You have this new book. It's called Unflappable.
Yes.
And which is one of those words that you're like, oh, that sounds like something I want. But I don't think a lot of people think about it. What does unflappable really mean to you?
So if you go to Webster's, and I went to Webster's because I wanted to understand so when someone misperceives it or has their own kind of take on it, I can at least refer us both back to the dictionary. So it is either seeming or having calm in chaos and a crisis. So I love that it has seeming or being, right? Like having calm or being calm and seeming to have calm are both unflappable. And that is rich with analysis for me of looking at the angles that you can take with that, the layers of personal growth that you can lean into for that, because it's not just one or the other. It's either, like you can do either, right? And be unflappable.
And what do you think of seeming? Because is it a positive or is it a negative? Is it a mask or is it a good thing?
It's both. So I mean, you and I are, contemporaries, and we grew up with or got into the workforce with fake it till you make it, and putting it out there. And because part of what that is when you seam it, two things happen. One, you're sending a message to your central nervous system that you are in fact safe and okay. And it reinforces the experience to actually become unflappable and not just seem unflappable. The other thing is that you don't negatively impact your environment in a way that has other people then set off. Because when you are agitated, other people around you are more likely to get also agitated because we as social creatures mirror one another.
Right.
So I think it's like, yes, it would be better to be unflappable in the sense of having that calmness. But if you don't have it, you will get to it, even if you just seen it.
I love that. So I want to take a step back, though, before we talk about the bubble concept and so many of your frameworks. You had a really, really tough childhood, like something that's almost unspeakable.
Yes.
For whatever you feel comfortable sharing, can you tell us a little bit about that and how that maybe shaped your ability to handle confrontation and be unflappable?
Yeah, I think like a lot of trauma, it both gave me incredible tools and also incredible handicaps.
Mm.
So I think that's kind of like the pairing. There's not one side or the other. I remember going to a psychiatrist when I was 18 in this moment of it's either resolve this or lose my battle with it, right? That was kind of that nexus. And I remember the therapist saying to me, you are so much more emotionally mature than your years and also so much less emotionally mature than your years. Like where you have deficits, man, you went hard, right? With your deficit, like you committed to that, right? And then where I had advantages, I had incredible advantages. So to tell you, the story, it's all chronicled in Little Landslides, which is my my autobiography, and it's also I tip my hand to a number of the stories in my TEDx talk, "The Secret to Making Life Hurt Less." But without getting too visceral with your listeners, my parents were ill-equipped for the responsibilities of parenthood. We can look at social cues, we can look at, personal factors, we can look at all sorts of influences that made that true. But addiction and mental health were not managed well. And because of that, there was family violence, there was, manipulation, there was, all sorts of abuse on every level, physical, sexual, emotional, physical. And so that left me with a sense of needing to figure out how to survive any moment and try to manage the people around me to the extent that I could be safe. So it often meant setting myself aside. And it usually meant trying to get in front of every possible train that might be coming down the track, listening for the tiniest of cues in the environment to see if I was safe in that moment or not. And in some ways, on the opposite end of the spectrum, it got me really angry. And so I confronted and directed all of those deep-seated emotions right at the conflict in ways that it blew it up like napalm. And so I think that really created a lot of good and negative practices. But at its core, it created so much insight and my drive to be clear about where people begin and end in their own personal power and how we cannot violate that in ourselves and others to the detriment of everyone and everything around us. Because had my parents, Erin, been clear about where their power was, they wouldn't have either given it up to one another or tried to take it from one another and had me be in the midst of it in the fallout.
Oh my gosh, that's so powerful. When you said to really figure out where people's the sort of the boundaries of their power you give an example of sort of post-adolescent, post-trauma, post-awakening where you were able to do that.
Yeah. And so for me, I think the biggest moment for me, and this was done in a manner in which it needed to happen because that's where I was developmentally, but it isn't where I would be now. And it isn't something I'd recommend. But I really did come to that moment of it's either I heal this or I succumb to it. And I mean that in every possible way. I mean that I had already had 3 serious suicide attempts, one that hospitalized me for a number of days. And so I was at the brink. I mean, I remember in my dorm, I was considering how I could die. Like, how could I do it in a way that wouldn't hurt other people excessively? Like, how could I make this happen? That real like moment of which door am I going to open? And in that moment, I remember, kind of contemplating what is it that is pushing me under? Because I felt like I was just drowning in the emotion and the intensity of all the pain that I was carrying. And for me, I said this in my head, it's either him or me. And I was meaning my dad. It was either continue the relationship with him, continue trying to figure out how to band-aid him and fix him and help him and hold him and shove my feelings aside and not, care about all of the history between us, or do something different. And so in our last communication, I opened up this like volcanic rage that I had like never seen in myself and just unloaded 18 years of pain at his footsteps. And as you can imagine, he received that very well. It was a really good conversation, and I'm kidding. And so
I was like, wow, he changed.
I know. I was like, wow, that was exactly what I wanted. So the little girl in me, of course, like my inner child was like, oh my God, please, daddy, come through for me. And he was like, Bail, right?
Yeah.
So in that breaking point, that's what gave me the permission to go and do my own healing work. That's what gave me the permission to then focus on me. And so I when I talk about unflappable, it's not like I've been unflappable and I'm unflappable every moment of my life. I have learned this stuff the hard way or watched other people screw it up so badly that I wanted to find the tools to be able to help people do it differently, because I know what my depths of pain look like, and I never want anyone else to be stuck there without a rescue hatch.
It's incredible. I'm so sorry you've had to go through all of that. And
I'm so happy. I'm so happy I went through it. Like, honest to God, because I'm sorry, I had to stop you because I hear that there's this sense of like, I love your compassion for me. And I absolutely applaud your compassion for me, because that's what makes us human, right? It's being able to see someone else's pain and being sorry that they went through pain. We don't get to pick these things oftentimes, right? Sometimes we do. But with that pain is where we get so much opportunity, not only for growth, but for giving. And I don't think I would ever have become a person so guided with purpose toward what I'm trying to do with other people if I hadn't seen the level of depravity that I saw. I just wouldn't. I don't think I can replicate that depth of experience.
Which is, it's so, I feel like we could stop the episode here because I think a lot of people need to hear that. But, one of the questions I was going to follow up with, but in a way you answered it, was sort of like, how do we, those of us that are blessed to have not had that level of trauma, get to go forward with the same tools? And I think the answer is that's exactly what. Yeah. This is like, and that you don't have to go through the trauma to learn what you've learned.
No. And that's the thing is like, I'm trying to, I remember I was in college and I have a very dark sense of humor. And I remember being in a workshop one time with some of my college dorm mates. And they were like, 1 in 4 women will be, raped in her lifetime. And then they talked about all these stats. And my friend looked at me and I'm like, I got you. Like, I got you all.
I'm the one.
Not only am I the one, but like we can go down this row and over. Like, I got you.
I got it for the class.
Right? I got this for you. But seriously, I think I want to say one thing, because I've had many people who have read Little Landslides and come to me and said, well, my trauma wasn't as bad. And I stopped them in their tracks, because here's the thing. We all have trauma. It doesn't mean we need to blame other people for having hurt us. Often they did it accidentally. They tripped over us. their approach didn't work for us. It wasn't what we needed at the time. We took a message from something that wasn't intended, whatever. Like there can be all sorts of neutral and negative things that create our trauma, but we all have it. Mine is not as bad as someone else's. I could pick a million people who have had far worse existences than mine. That doesn't mean that mine didn't affect me and shape me the way that it did. So I just want any listener hearing this, if they back up and they go and read my story is not told to diminish the stories of others. It's to have people be seen in their own pain, however that pain was delivered upon them.
You have such a heart, and that's an incredible point. So you went from being in college, heavily considering taking your life, confronting your father and sort of saying you or him. And then you went on to get your doctorate. You have a PhD, your Dr. B, which, by the way, I think is hilarious because I'm like, her name's so easy, Bridget Cooper, but she still has the Dr. B. I love it.
I think it's because and this is funny. So people who don't like their name, right? So Bridget sounds like I'm being scolded. I remember even in college and like beyond, any boyfriend who would try to say like, I love you, Bridget, it just sounded like they were angry. I'm like, you can't make that sound romantic. They're like, Brigitte. I'm like, I'm not French. Like Bridget doesn't sound that way. So B became my nickname many years ago, probably about 16 years ago. And I went, Dr. B, and that's just easier. Then they're not going to botch it. They're not going to misspell it. They're not going to make it sound like they're angry with me. So it works.
I love it. I love it. And you call yourself a cage rattler.
Yes.
Where did that come from?
It was an epiphany. Like a lot of people, I don't know if you do have it in the shower. I have it when I'm driving,
driving.
Yeah, it's always driving for me. Almost never shower, unfortunately, because I can keep a pen and paper outside a shower, I guess, like get it a little wet, but I can do it. It's when I'm driving and I'm like, okay, I got to grab my phone. I got to do something semi-illegal or pull over or whatever, or I'll forget this thing. But I was driving one day and one of my, a coach that I had been working with had said to me, like, everybody's a coach now. You've been doing coaching for like 10 years at the time. And now everybody's a coach. So something has to distinguish you. Like, what do you really? And I'm driving down the road and I'm like, oh my God, I'm a cage rattler. I am so clear that so many people are stuck in cages of their own design that they haven't noticed they have the key for. Like Hotel California, like they had the key all along and they're trapped in it. If they could just get outside the cage, they could see all of the multiple opportunities. Because to me, power comes through choice. And when we limit our choices, when we limit our vantage points, when we limit the ways we're willing to see things, we get stuck and trapped in one confined way of being and living our lives. So I rattle that cage to wake them up to their own imprisonment so they can get out.
Hey there, Erin here quick for a mano-a-mano chat. Look, if you're anything like I was when I was leading my corporate team, you're probably like a total hell yes when someone says that famous Peter Drucker line, culture eats strategy for breakfast. But the reality is that with the nonstop rat race that is your job, you likely struggle to find the time to spend on this elusive unicorn. Not to mention, you're probably completely overwhelmed trying to figure out just which of like 8 gazillion steps you should take to move things forward. When I was a corporate CEO, we were struggling big time, financially and culturally. But when I finally decided to make culture our number one initiative, no joke, our number one strategic initiative, crazy stuff happened. In just 3 years, our employee engagement score went up 15%, and we tripled our earnings. Now I help other leaders do the same thing, but much more simply. If this resonates and you'd like to talk through what this might look like for your team, simply send an email to hello@beauthenticinc.com. That's hello at just the letter B, authentic.inc.com, with just a little bit of background. And if we think your situation would benefit from our approach, we'll set up a strategy call to talk it through. No obligations. We could even do it over breakfast. And again, that's hello@beauthenticinc.com, or you can find it in the show notes here.
Let's understand what happens in your brain when you're faced with a conflict or a confrontation.
Right. So we were built for survival, which is beautiful, right? Because we wouldn't be here if we weren't. So we got to love that about ourselves. It's also our biggest enemy and our biggest failing. because we see threats, no matter what they are, often to the same degree we would if we all of a sudden were getting chased by a tiger. Like we have the same level of response, even though we are not in physical danger. So what happens is our body sees a threat, perceives a threat, interprets a threat, and we can talk a lot about how we get to that point of seeing a threat. It's based on our mental models and our experiences and perceptions. But we think there's a threat. And then all of a sudden our body goes into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, right? It's like, okay, I've got to get ready. I've got to get my heart racing. I've got to increase my blood pressure. I've got to tense. I got to get some cortisol going, some adrenaline so I can run out of here or fight my way through this. And that means that our prefrontal cortex, our like actual rational brain, it's like, you know what? I'm just going to take a little nap here because you seem to have this, right? Like I don't need to actually analyze any of this. I'm just going to relax. I'm going to take a little nap. And when the fighting's over, then I'll come back online maybe. And that's what happened.
I feel like my son's prefrontal cortex is in a permanent vacation.
Yeah, but
that's a whole other story.
Because
they don't fully form, right?
Till you're 25, which is one of the reasons in a lot of states, they're looking at raising a lot of the ages for like different crimes and doing a lot with youth offenders up to the age of 25, because until then, they're like running around in lack of prefrontal cortex brain, and they're not able to make the kinds of long range decision planning that we are once those connections are made.
Yeah, I get it. So in Unflappable and
yes.
if you're consulting and coaching, you have a number of sort of frameworks and tools that I want to get
70 of them. I'm so excited.
It's so many of them. So I want to get to 3 or 4 of those.
Okay.
The first one, though, I want to talk about, and then I'm going to let you drive a little bit more, is this bubble concept. Can you tell the story about how this came about and what this concept and tool is?
Okay. So first off, I have to say, so this book is Unflappable: How Smart People Quit Overthinking, Ditch the Drama, and Thrive at Work. It's very much geared toward my corporate and organizational clients, trying to get them to work and behave better and get other people to work and behave better around them. There's also, you and I know, this applies to our personal lives because we don't stop being the people we are when we walk through the door at work. And we don't hang those like personalities or traits up, right? We're to have the same head trash when we walked into the office as we do when we walk in the house and vice versa. So there are a lot of these tools that originated in personal experiences, whether of mine or my clients. So I give that caveat. I'm going to tell you a little story. So we are approaching a certain time of year. And so I often ask audiences, what is the best time of year if you grew up in a dysfunctional family to hang out with them? Like, what's the best time to go back home? The holidays, right? And I mean that facetiously. So the holidays, right? So, because everyone is looking for Norman Rockwell, right? And, not the Griswolds, right? And they're trying to figure out how to make all these moments match up to some elevated expectation or hope for people behaving differently just because the holiday is on the calendar. So one time, many, many years ago, I went home for the holiday and I went to my mom's house. And now I have to paint the picture for your listeners and for you. So there was my mom, my stepfather, who was an amputee. So he was parked on the couch. I was there with my 2 daughters under the age of 10-ish. And my sister was there with her 3 children under the age of like 11 or 12. Okay. So there's 5 children, 2 single moms, my mom and my stepfather. Okay. All right. Now, I've already kind of given up the ghost in a little bit of this. My mom's an alcoholic. My stepfather was a recovering alcoholic, if you can call it that. He just wasn't drinking, right? However that looks. And my sister was a recovering drug addict. Okay. So you're getting this picture of this is going to be some fun time. And now let me give you another piece of information, which is super important for the picture, is that my mother was like a squirrel on Red Bull. So I want you to get that image of that like
anxiety and
a petite woman who is just like cannot control the spinning, right? So she decides that for Thanksgiving, we're at Thanksgiving, she decides that she's going to make a 7-course meal. She's been watching a lot of cooking shows, just had her kitchen redone, has all the accoutrements, right? 2 sinks, 3 ovens, just everything is all built now for her pleasure. Now, we have 5 kids under the age of 12. If you had given them a bowl of grapes and Cheetos, they would have been quite fine for the day, right? But instead, she's making these hors d'oeuvres that have like ingredients I can't even pronounce. They, whatever, all this stuff. So she's bouncing around the kitchen. Oh my God. And sounding just like this. Okay. No, no, oh, no, no, no. And my sister, now let me say, my sister is my older sister, which means, and we understand how biology works, that she evacuated my mother's uterus before I got in there. Okay. You would not know that by the way that they are connected via umbilical cord. Like everything my mother feels, my sister feels exponentially bigger. Okay. So now my sister is freaking out every time my mother shudders, snaps, heaves breath, whatever. My sister left the house 5 times. Three of them drove away in her car, leaving her children behind. That was how activated she was, right? So she walks in the door at the end of this, throws her purse down, like with all her baggage. And she says, storming toward me, right? Storming toward me. Now, she comes and she says, all right, I have one question for you. And I said, okay. And she said, what are you on and how do I get some? And I chuckled because my sister, as the math major, had just asked 2 questions. And I thought about the sanctity of life and thought if I pointed that out at that moment, that probably wouldn't go so well, right? I'm just going to go with the fact that she asked me 1 question, even though there were 2. Anyway, so I said to her, I'm in my bubble. It's this beautiful, see-through, quiet space that I have enveloped myself in. I can hear what's going on. I can see what's going on. But inside my bubble, I am at peace. It is calm. It is beautiful. It is quiet. I am unaffected by whatever this is that's going on because it's not about me. I have no part in it. I've offered assistance intermittently. It's been declined. And I'm okay with that because I'm perfectly fine to stay right in here with all the stuff that I have going on in my head. I do not need to enter your stuff in to my bubble. So everything you throw at me, it's going to slide down the outside of the bubble and I'm going to stay right in here. She did not like my response. I don't think she ever tried it a day in her life, but it's okay because I was in there. And I was in there. And the thing that people often get confused about is when I talk about bubbles or I talk about boundaries, some people think of that as retaliatory or angry, like walls or punishment or shutting people out. And I want to say one thing that's really important for us to consider. If I had not been in my bubble, and I had engaged in any emotional transaction with either one of them, that would have made that day better or worse, Erin? What do you think?
Pretty much worse.
So much worse, right? So me being in my bubble was the greatest act of kindness I was capable of offering under the circumstances. So sometimes we think about doing these things as being selfish. Okay, yeah, because my mental health means something to me. So you're damn straight. I'm going to be selfish about it. But beyond that, it is so kind to make sure I am taking care of myself and not entering into battles I've been invited to that I have no business fighting.
I know at least one person that's going to love to hear this, and that's my co-host.
Oh,
I think it's so simple. It's visual. And I think you're right. It also is really important to understand that it is actually not selfish. It is an act of kindness to diffuse that. Switching gears a little bit.
Yeah.
You talk about this and/or strategy. Tell us about this and how, your clients specifically, maybe some stories about how they've used this to success.
Yeah. So, and or is one of my favorites because first, it's so hard to refer to, right? Because I'm saying and or is the thing. So if you can imagine when you try to put that into a sentence, it's so awkward. It's absolutely the most awkward thing you can imagine, right? So anyway, um, so I have, so in this, I put together this concept. So we've probably all heard of cognitive distortions, which means that thinking things that are perhaps correct, but perhaps are based in wrong thinking or emotional reasoning or something else that's kind of creating more drama or discontent than is necessary for that moment. So, and or simply allows us to relax some of our thinking and some of our certainty to move us toward a curiosity around problem solving, a curiosity around perceptions versus a certainty around those perceptions. So it's basically just whatever statement you make when you're getting yourself upset or riled up or judging somebody or, telling somebody what's going to happen is to say, or to add something to the end, like that could happen, or that could happen. This could be true, or this could be true, right? And the and is similar because you can you can swap them out a little bit, but and has a different quality when I ask my clients to put this into place. And it's that, so let's say your coworker, so Nicole would never be like this, but your coworker or co-host says something that's really annoying to you, right? And it seems insulting. And you say this in your head, like, oh, she is so irritating. And then you say, and she has been there for me when I've needed her, right? It softens the blow of being able to say, because no one person, no one experience is one thing or the other. There's always another perspective to grab. No one person is one thing. We're lots of different things. We're very complex individuals. So adding that or an and it's by far like my clients have a lot of different favorites, but this one pops to the top so often because it's so flippin' easy. And it's gotten to the point where my clients will have, because I do a lot of corporate retreats and things like that. So I have like teams that know me and have heard me talk about this concept. And they'll be in team meetings, and I kid you not, somebody will say something, and one of them be like, or, and then everyone laughs because it totally diffuses the moment because everybody knows what they're trying to do. And all of a sudden, whatever emotion or posturing or positioning or whatever that is that was starting to happen, all of a sudden, like, not happening.
I love it. I think about application too for children, like going back to, he did his clothes away and he's getting grades in school right now. And, right. It's interesting too, our last episode, Nicole brought up a sort of a similar concept where she adds yet. She started adding yet.
Yes.
Sentences. And it's a little bit different, but it's the same kind of like append a simple word and how much power that appendage has.
Exactly. It just loosens our grip because one of the things about our brains and we as humans is that we like to be certain. We like to be certain because certainty feels safe. We know how something's going to turn out. We know what someone's going to do. When we know what something is, and I put that in air quotes, then we can calm down a little bit because, we might get more amplified thinking about what that means for us. But that part of us that seeks that confirmation can kind of relax a little bit. So we drive toward it, even when it doesn't make sense, even when it isn't the right outcome. And what I try to guide my leaders to do to their abundant benefit is to take a curiosity mindset, to be a little bit more curious, a little more inquisitive, a little more flexible in the way that they're thinking about things. And with that flexibility comes choice on how to address it, what things they might be able to test out, and therefore more power from themselves, not over other people.
Yeah, confrontation, the worst part of confrontation is you feel like you're backed into a corner and you don't have control or choice.
Correct.
Love that. Another thing I love, you talked about, when we talk about confrontations, we also, a lot of what you talk about is confronting our own past demons, right? Not a literal confrontation, a fight, a meeting gone bad. But you talked about the brain science behind our anger and how it doesn't know what time zone we're in. Can you tell us more about that?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So one of the so I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm a certified hypnotist. I swear I haven't been practicing it on our call, but one of the reasons that I got certified in it is because it is so helpful to be able to get to the subconscious brain in a way that I can have a conversation without all that noise and pollution that our conscious mind has about the fixed ways that we see things, right? And the thing about our subconscious mind is that when we and our central nervous system, how we kick this off is if and you can imagine this and your listeners can imagine this. Let's say, go back and think about a terrible fight or confrontation or issue that you had with a partner, a business partner, a client, whoever that was. And if you go back to that and then you start telling someone about it, and you start telling about what it looked like, what they sounded like. You might even kind of like feel what it felt like or smell what it smelled like. Your brain recreates that as though it is actually happening right now, which is why when you tell those stories, you can feel your fist clench and your chest tightens and your stomach grabs. And then you have your heart races and you might get even like red in the face, because your body is responding to the story that you're telling it as though it's happening right here in this moment. And the same thing goes with rehearsing dangers that haven't yet happened going forward, is that you've then launched your body into the future time zone of what could happen, because we don't know what will happen. And then we're rehearsing that same thing, and our entire central nervous system is hijacked as though that happened. Same thing happens though with happy moment. So if you think back on a happy moment, all of a sudden you've got oxytocin, you've got serotonin, you've got like all the good happy chemicals flowing through your body. So you can hack your brain to be wherever you want it to be. It's why hypnosis is so powerful, is it has you imagining something as though it's happening now, because that's what your brain thinks is happening, and therefore sets that in motion to hold that as your current and future state.
Ugh, that's so good. It's interesting because I look back to some of the confrontations when I was in corporate, right? As a CEO, I had a lot of people doing things for me, but I had to deal with the big stuff, right? The big confrontation, the big executives internally, the big client issues externally. And I can completely relate with that feeling when I was in the same context, like still in the same rules. But it's funny, as I think about, as soon as I wasn't in that context, I changed jobs, or certainly when I left the corporate world, then those stories, it's the complete opposite. They're hilarious. They're like barroom fodder. They're in the books, right?
Right. Well, you've detached emotionally from them, right? Like you can now see them because they aren't a continuing threat to you.
Yeah. And that's where it's like, how do you fast forward that, right? How do you get to that place where you can laugh about it? Maybe, it could be a serious thing, but you still have a totally different, maybe even bordering on positive feeling about it when you're still attached to it.
I think you can. I think one of the things is we are beautiful storytellers, Erin. Like we tell stories like nobody's business. And so often we leave out very salient details or add in nuance and features to things that don't often serve us, right? Like we go to I used this example in a seminar I did last week. And I said, how many of you have, and everybody nodded, how many of you have said, oh my gosh, you are not going to believe what so-and-so did, right? And then they have this story. Okay. And then they get all sorts of confirmation from the people around them about how terrible that person was, how awful that experience must have been, right? And that carves it in our brain in a very emotional space. Instead, if we had gone and said, I really want to see this differently, because seeing it this way is not serving me. Like, I don't like the story that I'm telling about this interaction. And then we went to a friend. They might add an and or an or a yet to Nicole's point, right? To the end of that, to be able to shape it a little bit differently, which then again has our brain going, oh, that experience is a little different. So when I conjure up the memory of that experience, I don't have to go back to that other super hyped up, emotional, negative, threatened kind of space, I can go to this other space and operate from here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know where this is needed the most for me?
Where's that?
Saturday and Sunday morning at the hockey rink. And I'm sort of being funny, but I'm sort of serious. There is a tribe of parents, and there is a continuum, and there is one that in particular that can be the negativity starter, right?
Yes.
Badly, why are they line changing like that? There's horror, right? And then all the way down to the parent that just sits there and says nothing. And I've been thinking a lot about how I need to, when it gets like that, I need to remove myself, because I can see, like what you said with the bubble. I need to go in my bubble.
Yeah.
I can, it's easy to be mad at that, but also you can easily get sucked into adding to it. Oh my God, can't believe he missed this puck, or, And so I think, to your point, it's so important for work, but our confrontations, they just happen all the time, whether it's in our head or with our kids or with hockey parents or what have you. So that's what I love about what you teach. And obviously there's a lot of self-help mantras, but I think you do a really good job of bringing them to life in a very, very simple way. And that's what we need, right? We need we need bubbles, and we need to pick and choose probably just a few that are most helpful for us.
Hey, Erin here. Look, I am so happy you're here listening to the Because Work Doesn't Have to Suck podcast. But I'm also guessing that some days it can be tough to get over here, and you may not always have the time to throw in your earbuds for half an hour or an hour. So if you also want career and leadership tips, inspiration, and quite frankly, professional pot stirring, the best bite-sized way to get that from me is to connect on LinkedIn. Almost daily, I share tips, inspiration, and humor to help you, maybe your less than authentic boss too, be more authentic at work. You can find me by searching my name. I'm literally the only Erin Hatzakostas in the world, or at least the online world. So if you can spell it, you can find me. Or we make it easy. You can scroll down to the show notes and click the link there. See you there.
So with that said, I have a question for you, but I want people to go out and get your book and read about the 7 other tools, frameworks, and coping mechanisms that we didn't get to. Just tell them where can they follow you and grab the book?
Absolutely. They can go to my website. It's probably the easiest place to find it. So it's drbridgetcooper.com. And if they go to that front page, there is a link right on the front page to order the book. They can also click on the link that says Unflappable Resources, and they can go through that way. And I have a few bonus tools that didn't make it into the book that can be super helpful for people as well. So I would love to connect with people offline, have them hear what they think about the book. And obviously reviews are so important to me. So if you do read it, love you to review it. If you hate it, don't review it. Just tell me. But only if you love it. Okay. Only if you love it. That's my caveat.
Well, I think your opening story, so many of our listeners who are mostly sort of working the corporate beat, they're mostly Gen X women who've been around the block and been through a lot of chaos and confrontation and conflict. The opening story will hit you. You'll be nodding your head. I mean, that's how a lot of us have walked into our days for many, many years. Right.
And it came right from my clients. Yeah. This is not a made up thing. Yeah. These were all I'm sure my clients who have read the book are like, is she talking about me? I think I told her that.
Hey.
That affair, that thing. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's so happened. Yeah.
Uh-huh. That's what you get. So last thing I want to leave audience with is just a really simple tool. I love it. It's a physical tool. Tell us about how shaking your hands can help us.
Oh, okay. So we are energetic beings, and without getting woo-woo about the whole thing, right? We are built of energy, and we know that by how we carry tension, whether it's tied up in our shoulders or we feel certain butterflies in our stomach for negative or positive reasons. We have energy flowing through us. And one of the things that happens when we get really agitated, really feeling like maybe it's nervous or scared or whatever the negative emotion that we're feeling, doing a shaking of your hands, kind of like you go into the bathroom and there's no paper towels left, or you don't like a blower because you know that what that's spraying all over the inside of the bathroom. I digress. But anyway, so if you want to shake your hands out to get the water off your hands before you walk out of the bathroom, shaking your hand like that sends a message to your central nervous system that you're okay and that it's moving that energy from its like tension stress space and putting movement into your body that expels that right out your fingertips. I have tried this with countless clients, and every one of them has come back to me saying, I shook my hand. I cannot believe what a difference that made.
I love it.
Yeah. So go wash your hands and don't use a paper towel, and you can just do it all the time. Okay.
And, and another place, the hockey rink, they're always out of paper towels. So that'll help me when things get stressful, right?
Oh, there you go. Just go to the bathroom. Go wash your hands, even if you don't have to go to the bathroom. Just wash your hands and be like, I am going to get this out.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, I love everything you said. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Great to be in your cage that you're rattling. And thank you for sharing everything with our audience.
Erin, you were the greatest. I really appreciated our conversation. Thank you for that. And I'll look forward to connecting again.
Hey, it's Erin with a teeny request. If you have ever gotten any value from this podcast and you'd like us to stick around, plus you want it to continue to grow so we can kind of swindle bigger and more knowledgeable guests to join us and to keep providing you with tangible and inspiring actions you can take to achieve the career and life you deserve, could you please just take 1 minute to leave us a rating and a review? Those reviews go a long way in attracting guests to the show, and candidly, they really make Nicole and I's day. We see you. We really do. So when you have the time and inspiration, we'd love to see a rating and review from you. Thank you.